Okay, I will be refuting the earlier speech by Eric Garcia. The claim he presented was that induced pluripotent stem cells, pluripotent stem cells will eliminate the need for embryonic stem cells. His first claim that stem cell research has depended on the use of embryonic stem cells and adult stem cells for a long time. It is true, I wouldn't argue that. I just need to clarify that the dependency on embryonic stem cells is important to the use of embryonic stem cells. You shouldn't be jumping ship and eliminate the need for embryonic stem cells, because that's the basis of all the stem cell research we have. Embryonic stem cell research started in 1981 with mice, and then human cells in 1998. That's 14 years. The induced pluripotent stem cells started in 2006 with mice and 2007 on human cells. That is only 6 years ago. So the history on human cells that we have, the 14-year history, we shouldn't be limiting with that history. Also, on that first point, the embryonic stem cells are the gold standard for stem cell research, according to researchers from an article in 2010. Like I said, that 14 years of research is what we have. That's the standard we have. In 6 years, because of its such a recent time period, how can you eliminate a standard that you've set for 14 years and just look at a 6-year thing that's hasn't been proven yet, it hasn't been proven effective, it's not completely reliable yet, and I'll get to that in a second. But that gold standard, you can't throw away a standard, you have nothing to compare it to. In response to the second claim, discussing the controversies surrounding embryonic stem cell research, I believe that reasoning is flawed, because that all depends on when you think human life begins. The embryonic stem cell research takes an embryo stem cell within the first 5 to 10 days, those first few weeks, for opponents who believe life begins at conception, right when the embryo is created and formed. Using that in embryonic stem cell research destroys the embryo. It's unethical. Those are their claims. But that detracts from the medical benefits. That's only looking at, yes, the ethical, but if you look at all the medical benefits that we have, an article that the advocate used in his original claim was an ABC article from just at the start of this year, that 2 blind women were given embryonic cell treatment, and their vision has already shown improvements. So embryonic stem cell research, the medical benefits do outweigh that. Also on that second claim, as far as the legislation that's required and the rules that are required, in the United States, laws prohibit the creation for embryos for research purposes. Scientists instead receive leftover embryos from fertility clinics with consent from the donors. Most people agree that these guidelines are appropriate. They're not creating cells, they're not creating life for the purpose of research. They're using leftover embryos with consent. So that is okay, it's acceptable. President Obama, as the advocate mentioned, revoked and overturned an original policy, a law that was created by President Bush, in that it limited the embryonic stem cell research. Obama overturned that, saying, yes, we should be doing this research. It is a good thing. So it does have the president's approval. And looking at induced pluripotent stem cell, how is that going to be any different from embryonic stem cell research? There's legislation that's been going on for 14 years. There's controversy. It's been to the president's desk twice and signed off on. For induced pluripotent stem cell research, what's going to be any different about that? It might take another 20 years. It might take another 30 years. It's a new technology. It's been around for 6 years. It hasn't been proven effective yet. So the third claim, that induced pluripotent stem cells allow equal research, I would disagree with that and offer a counterclaim that stem cell scientist Robert Lanza of the Advanced Cell Technology said that there's a lot of excitement about this new technology, but no one wants to hear about the problems with induced pluripotent stem cell research. He found, and it's been proven with science, that the characteristics of induced pluripotent stem cells are similar, but their effectiveness is significantly reduced. They have a lower ability to divide. One stat pointed to 1% if it was in a cluster to grow of induced pluripotent stem cells, that about 1% would be effective compared with embryonic stem cells. So it's hard to predict. Thank you.
All right, you identified the main proposition. You basically just labeled the claims as you go along, so you're not really providing a preview of what your answers are going to be, but rather kind of just dealing with each point as it develops, which is not a bad way to go. I did think that you had a nice kind of overarching view of the argument concerning that there's a continuing need for embryonic stem cell research, even if the induced pluripotent stem cells are useful, and that need largely stems from the amount of history that we have with the embryonic stem cell research. And I like that idea. The only substance to it, though, that you get later on is, we've got one example of a success of applying embryonic stem cell research to treating people, and that's the two blind women who have gained some additional sight. I don't know what the complete resolution on it was, but it sounded like there was some improvement. And that's all we've got that suggests that we're ahead of the game because of the embryonic stem cell research. The only other evidence that gives a direct kind of comparison to the embryonic stem cell research comes at the end when you say that it's only 1% as likely to replicate or be as effective and so on and so forth. But I didn't get that as in comparison to embryonic stem cell research. For example, is that 1% versus embryonic stem cell research having a 25% success rate? I didn't really get the comparison that's going on there. And so if you're going to make the argument that the embryonic stem cell research is, like you said, the gold standard, which I do like that term in the way that that you quote that individual. I think that's a good point. Say this, look, we know this works and we want to stick with that. I think that's a good point to emphasize on. But I think you need to sell it a little bit more. You need to find some other information that shows that we have made substantial progress and that it's a timing issue is always relevant in this. There are a lot of assumptions in your argument about how, that time, 14 years versus 6 years. I'm going, well, in 10 years, it's only going to seem like a very small amount of time and difference. Why is this something that we want to be worrying about? I thought you got a little bit off topic or either confused or made some false assumptions concerning what the laws were on the guidelines. In essence, it sounded like you were suggesting that future presidents would be faced with the same kinds of problems in making decisions and guidelines for the induced pluripotent stem cells that they were faced with the embryonic stem cells, and that would potentially create delays as well. Although, as I recall, the advocate's argument was that this removes the ethical controversy, which is what started all of those problems in the first place. So, without an explanation of that, I think that whole argument that you present there is a little bit unclear. All right, thank you.